Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. Believe it or not, this week there's way more things than Marvel's Avengers on this Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, joined as always by my co-host, the Apex legend, Jack Martin. How are you?
Excelsior, Christian. I'm doing well. Excited it is the weekend. We're recording on a Friday. We've made it. Man, I'm excited to talk about what we're getting into this week, especially at the end. We finally made it to Spider-Man in review. And I'm excited for the next couple of weeks to be over, to be completely honest with you, so we can get into the good stuff.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, I have a story to get to later, but like Venom 2, only 90 minutes, you know. It's going to be a theater experience. You can get your popcorn. What's your theater thing? You get popcorn and do you do a Coke or what do you get?
So my typical thing is like stop at the Target, of course, get the $1 M&Ms, shove them into my pocket immediately. Then or Reese's Pieces, depending on how I'm feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that's the kind of, I need that hard candy, but also the chocolate, right? And then I'll get like small popcorn. I went medium at Shang-Chi. I was like, you know what? It's been a while. I'm just gonna eat all of this. Yeah. And then if I can have a winter coat and I can smuggle more food items, then I get a beverage from the Target and bring it in. If I can't, then I shell out the $1,000 and get a Coke there.
Do you know if the theater you're going to serves alcohol? Because I feel like that'd be fantastic for Venom.
I don't know, but yes, you're 100% correct.
Well, like you said, Spider-Man in review kicks off today. We are doing Venom in the back half of the show. Look forward to that. Next week, we are continuing the schedule at JoyClicksJC on Twitter. Sorry, at ExcelsiorJC on Twitter if you want to be up to date on the schedule to follow along as we go on to Spider-Man No Way Home. But before any of that, why don't we get on to Fury's report? Let's talk about this dang Marvel's Avengers game we love so much. This week, not a lot to talk about, if I'm being honest. It's like kind of light.
Yeah, it's been kind of light since War for Wakanda, which makes sense.
Yeah,
obviously, like it's the biggest thing, so they're a little bit of content light. We have the state of the game, but yeah, a bit quiet, and it's kind of quiet for the rest of the fall in some ways or another. Not like a lot going on, bits and pieces here and there.
Sure, yeah. So this week for Fury's report, we're starting with the marketplace because they're really, like I'm saying, I swear to you, I did the best I could do. There's nothing going on at Avengers this week. We got a new exciting skin, Jack, and you, as an Iron Man main, you get to debut this. Let's hear it. What is it? Are you buying it? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm eating quite well. We have the Iron Man 1 MCU-inspired Iron Man skin. This is, I believe you, John, is this the Mark III?
It is the Mark III, yeah.
So this is his first, like, red and gold suit that he dons in Iron Man. This is the beefy one. This is the one that, like, looks like it is made of, you know, he needs help putting this suit on because it is just so new at the time that he made it. So this is a big, beefy one. Really cool. I'm glad that they sort of are dipping into the well with Captain America and like the Avengers randomly, and now Iron Man from the first Iron Man, Black Panther from like Civil War. Like they're just kind of going all over the place, which I think is really cool. They don't have to follow the Avengers Endgame skin set that they were doing. They can just kind of jump around. And this is a really iconic one, so I'm very glad this is in the game.
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic. This is, I think, outside of the Mark 42, which I like strangely a lot for some reason. That's the like mostly gold one from Iron Man 3. This is like maybe my favorite Iron Man suit in the MCU just because it's iconic. I love that it's like a more maroon red than like a vibrant red like we get in Avengers. So I got nothing in the game right now credit wise. I got 2 skins in the shop right now that I want. They're making a case, Jack. They're making a case for him to drop some cash on this game.
They might get you. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get this one. I really like the look of it. I think I prefer the Endgame suit for Iron Man. Honestly, for me, anytime they introduce a new Iron Man suit in the MCU, I'm like, you know what? This is the best looking Iron Man suit. So they sold me with the Endgame suit. I got that. This one's really cool though. So maybe if this is priced down at some point or another, I'll grab this.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, right? Because I double dipped on Captain America at this point, and Cap is like the only one of the suits I bought. Like Cap and Widow are the only ones that fit my rotation occasionally, so I justified it that way, you know. I think, you know, we'll see how this goes. I'll see if I end up wanting to grind some stuff, but even then, I'd probably get the Black Panther suit first. So, Crystal, if you're listening, the Iron Man 3 suit, you would absolutely get me on that one. I can tell you that right now.
That's a good looking one. Iron Man 3 has really great aesthetics with armors and things like that.
Yeah, love that. We also have a new bundle in the shop at the moment. It's called the Avengers Federation bundle. It's got some weird like minimalist but not color schemes for most of the characters. Like Captain America looks like the French flag, kind of. He's just like got solid chunks of the red, white, and blue. I don't know how I feel about this one. Do you feel one way or another? Is this another just indifferent costume set?
Definitely indifferent, as always. I think this is like the most mismatched, sort of hit or miss outfit skin set out there. Like there's no rhyme or reason to this being like an outfit set. These look like they're kind of picked from different skin sets and just sort of lumped together. So it's a little odd that this is kind of packaged as one thing. Like some characters, like the Hawkeye characters, have gold, but like what you said, Captain America is all like blue, pretty much, and like some red here and there. Iron Man is like mostly gold with a little bit of red on his chest. Thor looks like that skin already exists in the game. It's like red, blue, and gold. And Hulk kind of looks like a pirate. And Ms. Marvel's just red and blue. So it's very... This might be based on a comic that I'm just not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very weird. Also, Black Widow has an awful skin. She's just a cop, and it's just not good looking.
I did see that Captain America's shield once again gets a little variant with this one. It's
yes.
It's like a blue star surrounded by some blue and then like a singular red, I think. It's visually striking. I don't like it, but it's another little tally on the board for weapon skins, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you. Hoping for the day that I'm sold on a team outfit skin. Have not seen that, but I'm glad that they keep continuing with it.
It's gonna be the Cowboys, I can tell you.
I certainly hope so.
Or the softball skin. I'm really surprised that they haven't done that. I genuinely thought they would have done something like that.
Make Iron Man a catcher, and you'll grab my attention.
Oh yeah. Well, that's basically it in the marketplace. There's also a free Hero Catalyst if you have not been playing the game much. And just, you know, genuine shout out. I like that they do the free things once in a while. Pretty much every week there's usually something, be it a nameplate or even sometimes it's been a skin. Like, I'm glad there is a free offering every week, even if it's not always super exciting. And a Hero Catalyst is, like, pretty solid. You know, that gives you boosted XP.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's nice having a free thing in the shop pretty much every week. And they're very consistent with releasing blogs and new content, at least in the marketplace, every week. So, good on them.
I will say one last thing that is purchasable in the game right now is a takedown for Thor that they might have me, Jack. I believe what he does is he throws Mjolnir on the person's chest and pins them to the ground, and then WWE ref style, Thor does a slide, lays down, looks at them, and goes for the 1, 2, 3 count, and it's pretty fantastic.
Ooh, that's good stuff. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I like that they're getting weird with some of these, you know, having some fun.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely.
Speaking of fun, in the updates section of the blog, the team is playtesting the Claw Raid currently. It's got a name. It is called Discordant Sound. What do you think of that name, Jack?
Sounds like a Pink Floyd album.
Ooh, okay. I can see that.
You know, some sort of psychedelic rock album.
Yeah, I can see that. And then I saw that name. I typed it out on our doc, and I was like, so that's probably where Discord got its name, right? I always thought it was like just a weird discourse thing, and I never actually thought about the fact that like discordant is actually a descriptor for audio,
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it too much.
No, never. But
That's
clearly they did. They figured out a cool, clever name for that sound spewing geezer that is Claw.
That's right.
Well, there's also an update about the Flashback Reward Cache. Currently, it is running until September 30th. If you complete flashback missions during this time, you'll get legendary gear, the same gear that's typically earned by completing vault missions with a hero above power level 80, and you get 100 fragments and 10 upgrade mods. You thirsting for upgrade mods right now, Jack?
Dude, I'm drowning in upgrade modules. So, no.
Well, maybe one day soon you will, because they did also mention the gear rework is being tested. It's going smooth and as planned, so that gives me faith for it hitting this year. And I guarantee you, they know many of us have swimming, like you said, in upgrade modules, so I'm sure they will cost a pretty penny if we want to upgrade our gear that is in the new system.
Yeah, I think you're right. Would be really nice if this came out around the raid, just so that system is in place, and you're not getting gear from the raid and then like all of a sudden it operates differently, or things like that once the gear rework comes around. So it would be nice if these release in tandem or pretty close to each other.
Yeah, so we'll keep our ears to the ground for updates on all of that in the future weeks of the blog. But like I warned y'all, that's it for Avengers. But Avengers related for Stark Realities. Yesterday, via Twitter, on an unverified account, but apparently it's official because Aaron Greenberg of Xbox follows this account. The Initiative on Twitter, the Xbox studio that is working on Perfect Dark. It is at one point a studio that was referred to as quadruple A developers. They are currently assimilating, partnering with Crystal Dynamics to continue developing Perfect Dark. And it was announced on a tweet in the afternoon on Thursday. Very strange. Your immediate reaction to this, Jack, was shared with me and I believe Greg Miller and a handful of other people. What does this mean for Avengers?
Yeah, so when we saw this news, of course, Christian, like what you said, a very select group of people immediately thought, man, this could have implications for that Marvel's Avengers games that we all love. This is just bizarre news. It's kind of rare for a first-party development studio under like Microsoft in this case to work with a third-party studio that is owned by a different publisher. That is very rare as far as I'm aware. So it's very strange just on that level. But in regard to what this means for fans of Marvel's Avengers, I have a feeling like this isn't that big of a deal. Like, I don't think Crystal Dynamics is going to be treating Avengers as lesser than this new project that they're going to be helping out with. It seems like they're going to be more in a supportive role than the Initiative is. Like, the Initiative is leading the charge on Perfect Dark, whereas Crystal's coming in and helping them, but they're not like the lead developers, it seems. Again, this is kind of new, so I guess we'll find out. But that's what it seems like so far. I'm still of the opinion that Crystal's going to be releasing content for Avengers through 2022, and that might probably be it for this game. That's just what I'm thinking right now. There's obviously no confirmation on that, but that's what I'm thinking. And also, Perfect Dark is years away. Like, they are in very early development. Yeah. So if it is the case that they make content for Avengers till 2022, maybe even 2023, I don't think that their work with the initiative will affect that content dramatically.
Yeah, you make some great points. That's the logic of everything pulling through. The immediate thing was a lot of from a lot of people online, right? Just not even Avengers fans, just like genuine bystanders, I guess, in this whole Crystal Dynamics situation. Just a lot of confusion because, like you said, it's. I don't think it's rare for like a big dog studio to get support like this. It's just rare for it to be announced this way, you know? Because like when you look at the credits for something like Last of Us Part 2, there were support studios on that game, right? That weren't just Naughty Dog. The Crystal has Eidos Montreal listed on their credits for Avengers. So it's like it's not completely out of the realm. It is a little weird because it's a third party studio with Crystal that's owned by Square being recruited by Microsoft to help their first party studio. So like again, a little strange, but the strangest thing is the fanfare behind it. And when it comes to Avengers, I agree with you. I think whatever their plan is for next year, I don't think it's changing. When it comes to the scope of their plans, I think right now I would be surprised if we ever got anything that was larger or more ambitious than War for Wakanda for the rest of this game's life. And honestly, I might even be surprised if we get a singular drop on that level again. So, depending on when they start working with the initiative, if they're just doing character drops, if it's like every few months we get a Hawkeye or Kate Bishop level hero and operation to run through, occasionally we'll get a little more, like maybe another raid down the line. I feel like that's doable for a split off team for Crystal, you know? Like they're not managing all these bug fixes and server problems like they had to before. Now if it's just creating the character expansions, it's not like they're designing a whole game ground up, right? Like, obviously it's still hard, but I'm not really worried about their attention being diverted. Also, I forget if this was around the year one blog, but they have a second team now. Like, there's the Crystal Dynamics that I believe is in California or Seattle, and then they opened one in Austin, I think, as their sister studio. So maybe that's the one that's working with the initiative. We don't know.
Yeah, I think this news, for me at least, if a group was to be worried about this news, it would probably be Microsoft fans or Xbox fans, or fans of the initiative or Perfect Dark, because it's very strange that this, like what you said, this studio that was touted as a quadruple A, which is a stupid term, studio, is working on this game that is, a first-party Xbox game, it now needs support from a big development studio. That I would be concerned about as an Xbox fan. I would not be. I'm less so concerned as an Avengers game for this game. I'd be more so concerned as a Perfect Dark fan awaiting this game, because that is strange. Usually, like, support studios are sort of like smaller in scale, like Nix's, for example, who did the port for Avengers, I think on like PS5 and like different platforms like that. That's like a smaller studio that helps out. Crystal Dynamics is a huge studio that made Tomb Raider and Marvel's Avengers. That is strange for that to be crossing, for that studio to cross over for Microsoft. So not so much concerned for the Avengers in this case.
I agree. I the biggest sadness as somebody who was intrigued by Perfect Dark is the fact that it is probably, like you said, years away. That's such a bummer.
Yeah, that is like a 2024, 2025 game maybe. Like,
probably
it's a while away.
Well, no new segment, Jack. Moving on. I figured if we're going to be talking about Guardians at least here or there once a week leading up to launch, because promo is going to start coming out a lot more. Some stories will break, I'm sure. We need a dedicated Guardians segment leading up to launch. And I was trying to figure out, where should it go in the show? What should it be called? It goes here. It's called Nowhere Else to Put It. Spelt like nowhere.
I like it a lot.
Thank you. A lot of impressions came out about Guardians of the Galaxy this week. Press got to play about an hour, 2 hours, and give some impressions about the combat, the game, the mechanics, the story, the characters. And from what I listened to, I won't say overwhelmingly positive, but I heard very few negatives. I think the only thing I heard was like, from some individual, like, oh, it's the weird Uncanny Valley disconnect. You don't look like a Chris Pratt. But like, I still understand why that's a hang up for some people. But other than that, I feel like most of the impressions I heard for Guardians were good. I don't know if you heard different.
Yeah, no, the highest praise I heard was Simon Cardy's preview on IGN, comparing it to the Final Fantasy VII combat system, which is amazing.
That's high praise.
Yeah, so that has me excited. And like, there was kind of a scale. It wasn't anything super negative, but something along the lines of like this just being sort of dumb fun, which is not really that big of a negative. It's honestly like, that's an attraction to me. Mm-hmm. So if it falls in the middle of that, I think this is going to be a really solid game.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what else is dumb fun? Some of my favorite games are dumb fun, Jack. Like, Infamous 1, dumb fun. Cool style that carries that pretty far above dumb fun, but like, it's dumb fun.
Sure.
A lot of Sonic games are dumb fun. Some of them are bad, but some are good. So yeah, like, I don't know who's going into Guardians of the Galaxy needing it to be like, oh, this is revolutionary, you know, like.
Yeah.
I also did see, speaking of high praise and comparisons, I saw a lot of people saying it's Mass Effect with a comic book skin on it, and that surprised me too, because like, I understand mechanically why you would say that, like, oh, you're with your crew, you're on the Milano, you're talking to them between missions and gaining more trust with them and earning points in their favor for potential choices later in the campaign. But when you bring up Mass Effect, you call up an expectation of the way those choices play out, you know?
Yeah, and I think my mind, when I first saw this game with the dialogue options, went to like a Telltale game.
Same, yeah.
But the way that, like what you said, people have been describing it as like a Mass Effect, as similar to Mass Effect, that makes sense, and it makes more sense to make those comparisons to Mass Effect, because I just got through playing the trilogy this summer, and if this replicates that in even the smallest way of walking around your ship and talking to your crewmates and like potentially building rapport with them, that has me super excited for characters I already love, and for them to be translated to this game, and for you to have that personal connection to them and like create those relationships with them. That has me stoked.
Yeah, and there was some gameplay that came out from these impressions, right? And I did see Peter Quill walking through the halls of the Milano. Drax is hanging out in a corner. Walk by, triangle prompt with a text bubble. So you're going to get it, you know? And I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited for with the game. I just hope, and from the previews it sounds this way, but I hope the writing and performances are consistent with what I want out of a Guardians experience that I'm shepherding, you know? Like, maybe...
Shepherding.
I know, I realized it as I said it. And then I was like, that's probably why they named the character that way. But yeah, I think if I can go into the Guardians of the Galaxy game, like you said, characters I already love, I get combat that's reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I get Mass Effect style relationship building and dialogue, I get some cool looking ship combat that I didn't know was going to be in the game. We're going Star Fox mode. I'm into this game, Jack.
Yeah, I'm going into this expecting it to be dumb fun. Like, that's where my expectations lie. And if they can meet those and maybe surpass those, this is going to be really great. And I'm expecting a fun time, and it really seems like it's going to be that way. The combat, I think, like what we've already said, just looks incredible. Like, it looks really fun. I appreciate the focus on it just being Star-Lord, but you also having command over your squad, kind of in that Final Fantasy VII Remake vibe. So, yeah, that has me stoked. It seems like this is going to be a really fun few hours of a game.
Yeah, and I appreciate it that it like knows what the Guardians is, because there are some elements to this that I've heard that are not taking it seriously at all. Like, there's a mechanic where mid combat you can call like a huddle up, and then you get this like little dialogue cutscene in the middle of a fight where you can like pick some choices of dialogue to give a pep talk for the team, and then that might give them like an attack buff or general stat boosts for the duration of the rest of the fight. And then you can choose to like trigger a song or something. Like, it sounds just like what you're saying, dumb fun. And Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 on the MCU side are two of my favorites. Like, Guardians 2 recently became my favorite of them all. It's dumb fun, but the thing that the movies nail is that underneath the dumb fun, there's genuine, like, heart-wrenching passion and care from James Gunn writing these characters. And I'm not expecting that from the game, but if they're able to get, like, just a shred of some, like, genuine, heartfelt wholesomeness to the intent behind the story they're telling, I think I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I'm very much looking forward to this game. I think this might be my most anticipated game this fall, like new game.
Over a new Pokemon experience, Jack?
Well, there's that too. Well, Halo as well. Halo's probably number one,
Yeah.
and then this is probably up there as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did not play many new games this year. Game of the year pickings be slim, so I think this has a good shot if it's good, you know.
Dude, I'm still playing Deathloop. I have not beaten that game yet.
Damn.
Yeah, it just hasn't hooked me.
Speaking of hooks and Halo, I know this is not a Halo podcast, Jack, but I got to mess with the bots last night, and that grappling hook gave me Titanfall 2 energy.
Oh man, dude, I've been on the hunt for an Xbox. I'm very jealous of you and Mike Connors, co-host of Jedi Knights, because you guys can play that this weekend. Man,
yeah. Playing that tonight, Jack. Playing that tonight.
Enjoy.
Well, you know what else I'm gonna enjoy in this Guardians game?
What's that?
These MCU skins out the gate, no additional purchase required.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It's
we're not very familiar with that on this side of things.
No, we are not. I mean, is it really that much of a surprise, though? Because when it comes to the films, the Guardians did the Avengers, but just better across the board. Is that what we're going to get on the game side, too?
Sorry, just MCU skins?
No, I'm just talking about, like, in the film, like, the film side, the MCU, Guardians is Avengers, but better. Is that going to be replicated here? Because an element that is key to both these games is skins. They're doing it better here already.
Yeah, I mean, this has been pitched, like we've said 1,000 times, as like the anti-Marvel's Avengers. So, yeah, I'm going into this game overall with the expectation that this will probably be a better game than Marvel's Avengers in like a lot of ways. And already, it seems like the way they're treating skins is significantly better than the way that Marvel's Avengers treats skins. So, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, and we got a good look through all this new coverage this week. We got MCU skins for Drax. That was the best look of all the ones we have seen and I've seen floating around. There's Drax. There is Star-Lord. He does have the mask, as you would hope, but it's funny, his outfit isn't that different. It's like the Guardians 1 jacket when he's on Xandar. It's like that look. So he just kind of looks like Game Star-Lord, except his shoulders don't have shoulder pads on him. There's also Groot. He's got like the chest sort of plate that Vin Diesel Groot has. We did not get to see Groot's face in that screenshot, just his body, but it looked like MCU Groot. And I'm sorry to break this to you, but Rocket, it looks like will be maintaining the goatee no matter what skin.
Ooh, have I expressed my distaste in the goatee?
That might have been Kevin.
Okay.
I'm forgetting.
That might be Kevin, because I don't know if I ever. I was gonna say Groot, his face is like too big to compared to his like eyes and mouth.
Yeah.
So I have a Groot thing. I think Kevin might have the Rocket thing.
Okay, that's fair. Did you also see like the party suit Rocket with the sunglasses?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh man, that's a permanent skin. No matter what MCU skin they throw in there, I'm using the shades and the blazer on Rocket Raccoon.
Hell yeah, that's gonna be fun, and I'm sure they're gonna have some crazy ones just because that's Guardian style. So good it'll be nice to see what they all look like.
For sure, and I'm sure there will be more coming soon when it comes to both MCU and general stuff. There were some other like comic skins that were in these screenshots, but I wanted to just highlight the MCU ones considering how prominent the MCU skin discussion is with Avengers.
Yeah, totally.
Well, meanwhile, Jack, there's been some breaking news today. Steve Ditko's estate. Steve Ditko, if you're not familiar, listeners, is co-creator of pretty much all the characters that Stan Lee gets all the credit for. Like, Steve Ditko had a hand in the creation of Spider-Man, in like a pretty major way, as well as I think Ghost Rider is one. And there's a lawsuit going on that's specifically referring to about like 7 to 9 of them. His estate is trying to get the rights to the characters back. If they're successful, Marvel as a whole, not just Marvel Studios, Marvel will lose the rights to specific characters in the year 2023, and the major ones would be Black Widow, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man. Initial thoughts on this, Jack?
That'd be insane.
Yeah.
I don't like. That's the extent of what I know about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see this going through. Like, I can't see Disney and Marvel as a whole letting this happen. Like, they're gonna throw. Like, again, I don't really know about the situation, but I feel like they're going to throw as much money as needed to defend their their rights to these characters, just because they're so profitable. So, like, they need to reach a deal. Like, hey, Steve Ditko's estate, like, we're gonna give so much money to you to just settle this. I'm sure they're going to do that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, like, if this did go through and the estate got the rights to the characters back, and like Iron Man is included in that, but like I feel like that's not as important considering he's deceased in the MCU. But
right,
if they were to get the rights back to Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and literally everybody that is kind of prominent leading into the new phase, like Thor as well, I'm almost positive. I'm like 99% willing to bet that suit goes through, they just sell it back. I think that is what they would do. So if you're right, if Disney could buy them out of this, maybe it just gets nipped in the bud before this even goes to courts. But if it does go, and it does go through, I don't imagine they're just going to sit on it or make it public domain. But could you imagine if that was what happened if Spider-Man became public domain?
I saw people suggesting that. I don't think that would happen. That would be insane.
Yeah.
I think a likely possibility, if Ditko's estate reclaims the rights, is they just license it back. Like, they retain the rights and just license it back to Marvel anytime they feature a character in anything, where they just make hand over fist money.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much impact this would have on the consumer at the end of the day. I'm sure it would. But like, I don't think this means that these characters are like just gone, right? Like, something will happen. I do think Disney and Marvel will throw everything but the kitchen sink at this to to reclaim these rights, or to keep these rights, because I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, so like you said, even if something does happen with this, they're not going away. They'll be around in some capacity, but what form that takes and through who remains to be seen. I'm going to keep an eye on this in the coming weeks. If there's any major updates, of course, we'll talk about it on the show, but very interesting thing to just see on a Friday afternoon, you know? Like, I did not expect to see the heirs
bizarre.
of Steve Ditko coming for blood.
A lot of like weird litigious stuff going on, like Marvel related, with the Black Widow stuff, and now this. It's very strange.
Very, very strange. Unfortunate news, but is it really? Ms. Marvel has been delayed to 2022.
Yeah, this is kind of expected, honestly. Like, as we got closer to the fall and we didn't have like a direct confirmation, it was like, when would this come out? This was supposed to come out in the fall, or some point in late 2021. And once we got the trailer to Hawkeye, immediately I was like, I don't think we're getting this year, because like they would have to release it now, like literally as we're talking, for it to like not overlap with so much stuff. And the fall and the winter are very packed for Marvel and Disney Plus, so this seems like a really good move, because it would just be way too much content, I think.
Yep, same page. I could have seen a world where Ms. Marvel started releasing maybe after What If ended and leading up to Hawkeye, but that would have been non-stop stuff, because you still have Eternals dropping. Like, Spider-Man, I think, is the week after or like the week of the finale of Hawkeye, so like that still gets a little room to breathe. But yeah, Ms. Marvel, I think, is going to be a character that will not only be important moving forward and be showcased pretty consistently in the MCU. I think when you debut her in this universe, she deserves the room to breathe. Kind of like how Shang-Chi got. Like, there's nothing else really going on right now. Shang-Chi is a brand new hero, not introduced anywhere else beforehand. Debut, here you go. There's no other Marvel stuff right now. Like, there's What If, but What If is like for funsies, you know? It's not taken away from the conversation or takeaways or universe threads that elevate Shang-Chi. Ms. Marvel deserves that too.
Yeah, you're right. She was the highlight from the campaign of Marvel's Avengers, and I think she deserves all the love that she will get with this show. So yeah, I think it's a smart move in that regard. And also, this would have been the 10th MCU project released this year, or one of the 10, which is insane. And the fact that there are 9 other ones that have come out or will come out this year is bonkers. And that might be a conversation for another day of and the MCU releasing too much stuff. But man, it would have been a fat fall. So glad that they're pushing this one just a little bit.
Yeah, and I imagine this is going to be early next year, right? Like,
it's like April, March, February,
like before the summer
time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting because we know Kamala Khan is going to appear in The Marvels, which is releasing next November. So that might be some really good momentum for her character as well. Like, introduce her being like, and later in a few months, she's going to be on the big screen. Go support her, you know? Like, I think that's probably, honestly, a smart move. Maybe just a happy coincidence, but it's probably going to be beneficial, you know?
Yeah, you don't really see characters like get that sort of sequel that soon after, so that it is nice that we get that progression with her character like pretty much in the same year. So that's cool.
Yeah, like the only thing I can really think of that is kind of like that, I think, is 2018, where we got Black Panther in February, and then Infinity War was the follow-up, and that had a huge presence on Wakanda, and Black Panther was there, right? So, like, maybe that's a similar thing. Clearly that worked well for that part of the Marvel Universe, so exciting that Ms. Marvel's going to be positioned in a similar way, you would assume.
Yeah, definitely.
One last thing on Meanwhile, Disney Plus Day is the anniversary of Disney Plus releasing. That is November 12th. And on the celebration that day for Disney Plus Day, we got some announcements. There's going to be a bunch of new things, but one of them caught my eye. It is the Star Wars sneak peek because that means Kenobi, but they also said Marvel is getting a sneak peek. Jack, Mike and I talked about the Star Wars sneak peek because it's positioned the same way as Marvel on this list. We came down on the idea that it would be a sizzle reel for 2022 projects. Do you feel any differently of what this Marvel special look, first look, sneak peek could be?
That's interesting that you said. I was thinking more along the lines of what we got for Investors Day last year, but I would imagine if Investors Day is still a thing, this year that will probably just be consistent with that. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe like, I would say a 3-minute trailer, and maybe that is like sizzle reel, like similar to what they did in the summer, that random Monday where they like dropped all the like pieces of trailers or like title cards for like the upcoming projects. Like I think we got the first look at Eternals there.
Sure, yeah.
I think it might be similar to something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think because like when we look at the 2022 Disney Plus lineup, right? The justification for the Star Wars one was like there's the Cassian show, there's Kenobi, there's Bad Batch, there's Mando season 3, there's I think something else that I'm blanking on right now. And a lot of those things are being shot or in the process of post-production. So it would make sense to give first looks in a 3 to 5 minute trailer, just title cards, maybe announce some new stuff. On the Marvel side, there's like, we know Hawkeye will be starting a couple weeks after. They could show Hawkeye. They could show some footage from Moon Knight. They could show She-Hulk. They could show Secret Invasion. And whatever other shows Disney Plus is getting for Marvel next year, like, we know a lot have been being shot. Ms. Marvel will probably be in there too. I think it makes sense to do that more than a special look being here's 5 minutes of the first episode of Hawkeye, or here's a couple announcements for 2026 shows. You know, like I think it's probably stuff that we're due to see at this point.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Like maybe a good look at 2022 and a little bit beyond.
Sure.
So there's that. It's also worth mentioning that Shang-Chi's coming to Disney Plus on that day, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
I will be watching it.
That is very, very exciting. And when we were talking about this also, Mike mentioned to me what happened with him and Shang-Chi, how he had a fantasy draft and he only saw the last third, but he liked it.
Yeah, he came in like right at the third act.
That's so funny.
You know, if you got to see one act of that movie, glad it's that one. But yeah, it's good. Maybe there are some other people out there who had a fantasy draft at the same time of their showing.
Yeah, tis the season, you know.
It really was. So that'll be good. And I don't think I'll go see Shang-Chi again in theaters. I actually don't even know if it is still in. I'm sure it is.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going to wait till then. It really doesn't seem like it's that far away, which is really cool. Under a couple months to go until then. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, I think I saw some article recently within this past week talking about I think it would have been a 70-day window between the release and the Disney Plus release, but I remember the initial conversation when like Chapek was talking about the experiment. It would have been a 45-day window, which is bonkers to think of. That would be like the first week of October almost. But
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Shang-Chi, I also think, is approaching Black Widow's title for like the highest grossing film of the year so far in theaters in the box office. So
Nice.
it's gonna ride that success out to November 12th. Anything else you're hoping to see on Disney Plus Day?
I mean, aside from like Star Wars stuff, which I'm very excited for, as you and Mike are, for Marvel stuff, no, like I really don't even know what special look looks like. I'm thinking maybe like that 3-minute trailer or whatever, like a glimpse into what the future is gonna look like, and then I think, is Investor Day a yearly thing? Because if it is, I think we're just gonna get the bigger stuff at Investor Day.
I have no idea if it is. I think last year was the first time it was live streamed.
Yeah.
But I do remember in college one time, like tuning into an investor call where they had similar updates on things, but like they turned it into an event, because of course. But I know Disney. God, what's their convention? D23. I know that's like every other year, so yeah, maybe they could. Was there one this year? D23?
I don't know. I don't know.
So maybe they alternate. Maybe it's 1 year it's D23, 1 year it's Investors Day, or maybe it's every year for us. But
Right.
we'll see. Moving on, let's get into the discussion for our required viewings of this week. First up, the new episode What If. I have little to say about the Party Thor episode of this week's show. Jack, do you?
Don't have much. I think I'm with you. I am really just not riding very high on What If at this point. As a whole so far, it's not really grabbed me. I don't think the show has really leveraged the concept of What If, and like it has the entirety of Marvel at its disposal, and it's chosen some very not interesting concepts, and this is one of them. I didn't think the concept of Party Thor was all too interesting. It was like very, very much like I don't think anyone has ever thought like, oh, what if Thor and Loki like didn't grow up together? And even if they did, this probably wasn't the outcome they were thinking of. And the coolest parts of this episode were the Captain Marvel Thor fights. Like that was interesting. But other than that, I will not watch this again ever. Probably.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have had that thought before of like, oh, what if Odin never took Loki, And I guess as a byproduct of that, it would have been like, oh, well, I guess Thor wouldn't have grown up with him then also. But like you said, it was never like this type of approach, which I do think is fun. I like the idea of the direction they take Thor in this, because like it's not the use of that what if blank check endless possibilities sort of thing, but it was still fun, and I kind of feel that way about a couple of the other episodes on the bottom half of our ranking so far, where it's like, hey, yeah, it didn't do much with the concept, but I had a good time watching it. I feel full of this concept, and I don't need to revisit this concept, And I'm with you, the Captain Marvel fight thing was really, really cool. That was the highlight for me. We can crack open spoiler territory if there's anything else you want to bring up spoiler-wise. Did you... Let me ask you this. Did you like the idea of this take on Thor compared to, let's say, Bro Thor in Endgame? Or like the type of character leaps we've seen MCU Thor make? Like, is this jarring because we've seen him jump around a lot in the MCU already? Or was this just sort of like, okay, yeah, that's basically Thor for you?
I don't know. I don't mind the jump we got to Ragnarok and then the jump we got to Endgame. Like I feel like that was pretty consistent. And I feel like the change of character was needed for Ragnarok, right? Like Thor was very stale after the first two Thor movies, and it was a good change.
To some people.
Yeah, sure. To me, I thought it was silly. It was
No, you're right.
it was jarring at first for Ragnarok, but I got over it and I really appreciate it. And Endgame was maybe a lot for some, but I enjoyed it, and I think he'll probably mellow out some in the next Thor movie. But yeah, I feel like that sort of opened up the floodgates for this interpretation, at least, where it's like, oh man, this is a little too silly. Like, and the show itself is really silly in a lot of ways that I don't find very enjoyable. So I didn't really like the depiction here. It was a little over the top and didn't really seem like a plausible character. He was just silly for the sake of being silly, and it's like, all right, I don't need to spend the 30 minutes of watching this because it's just a little too much for me.
Yeah, and I think similar to what we were talking about with the Tony Stark Killmonger episode last week, I feel like the more interesting thread with this premise, because like there are interesting things that are brought up by that idea. I kind of would have preferred to just see a full episode of just like Loki's perspective growing up as Frost Giant world, you know? Because I feel like, how does that change his character? Is he still a trickster? Does he still learn all this magic stuff? Is he just like, does he inherit the throne from his father? Like really peel back the layers of what makes that Loki different. And we got like shades of it, but like I really would have liked if we do that initial, what if Odin wasn't a colonizer, and how that would have affected Loki's life, you know? Like, I think that's the interesting thing from this they didn't grow up together pitch.
Yeah, like, again, this is just another example of them getting really close to an interesting concept and just going like the complete opposite direction. And I feel like a lot of episodes in What If have been like that, where they touch upon super interesting paths that they could go down, and they just go down a completely random path that I don't think anyone asked for. And like, I don't know, this show I feel like hasn't really, like I said, hasn't really lived up to that potential of just really going crazy with some really super interesting ideas. And I started watching Star Wars Visions recently, which is kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish this show had that license to just go off and just put people in just crazy situations.
But they do, though. That's the thing. That's weird.
In this show,
you'd assume they have the license to do that, right?
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying I wish they capitalized on that.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, because I also did see a lot of people this week, especially coming off of this episode and last week's also, and the fact that Visions dropped this week, which, outside of the dummies that are like, Star Wars doesn't make sense to be in Japanese culture, that don't understand how
that was so
anything
stupid.
works.
I saw that.
Outside of that, I've seen like an overwhelming positivity for Visions, and I've only watched the first like 2 episodes so far, but I did see a lot of people who've been following along with What If this week watch Visions and be like, oh, I don't know if I like What If, because like I really, really like Visions, but this is other people's thoughts. This isn't mine. I still have a good time with What If, but it's a sentiment that I've seen popping up since Visions dropped. So there are absolutely people that would back up that idea of like, man, that's how you use a concept, you know? So
yeah, I also think it seems like we're building to something in this, so it doesn't seem like it's even like disconnected from the MCU. Like, it seems like it's very possible that like this is connected to the MCU more so than we were expecting it to, which I think limits that. Where this could have been like, this is not canon. We're just, you know, licensing these characters and doing like crazy stories with them and just to have fun. And the show hasn't been fun so far. Like, that's what I was thinking with this episode. This one in particular was supposed to be a really fun episode. And I was like, man, this is not a fun episode. Like, it's unfortunate, I think.
Well, why don't we try and slot it into our ranking? As it stands, for the 6 episodes we've ranked so far, last place, number 6, is the Killmonger Tony episode. 5th place is Captain Carter. 4th place is Doctor Strange. 3rd place is the Marvel Zombies episode. 2nd place is the Fury Avengers Murder Mystery episode. And 1st place is T'Challa Star-Lord. Where would you put this one?
I would put it below Captain Carter and above Killmonger.
I wholeheartedly agree. You read my mind, Jack.
There we go.
Look at that. Yeah, because, like, I think I rewatched the Killmonger one since we talked last week because I really wanted to like that episode, man. It just kind of feels flat, and maybe this one does too, but at least I wasn't super bored with it, I guess, you know?
Yeah, like I would rather rewatch this one despite not wanting to. Like I'd rather spend the time to watch it because it's more, I guess it's more lighthearted. I really liked the Captain Marvel Thor fighting, and it made me think of, like, man, I wish I kind of just pulled in a bunch of Marvel characters that they haven't even introduced yet. Like, just do like a Wolverine versus Hulk episode, like it kind of made me think of that. So I did like that element to this episode. So there is that makes this a little bit better in my mind.
For sure. I agree. Well, I'm interested to see if we agree on this. Let's talk about Venom. I was trying to decide if we should have like a fun little intro, but I couldn't think of it. Is it time to thwip out to Daily Bugle newspaper spin?
We can think about this. We have time.
We do.
Before the meat and potatoes, we have time.
I think Venom is quite a good rotisserie chicken dinner, Jack. I think this is a solid movie.
Is it a rotisserie chicken dinner that was found in a trash can, eaten by Eddie Brock?
Maybe. But isn't there still a beauty to that?
Still some taste to it.
Okay, so since these are rewatches, obviously we're not going to do spoiler warnings. Well, we will do a spoiler warning for Venom 2 next week. We'll do general impressions there, but we can just dive right in here. This is a movie that, for me rewatching it, I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to like it, because I watched it in theaters in 2018 when it came out with our good friend Omar Nakvi. It was a wonderful theater experience. I think it was opening weekend. There was maybe like 12 people in the theater with us. I was having the time of my life. I thought this was the wackiest, weirdest time capsule of a superhero movie, but it worked for me. Being fully aware of what it is, like, I think it's fun. I was worried I would feel not that way about it this time around, because this is only my second time watching it. But overall, I still think this movie is fun. The first, like, act is kind of whack when it's coming to tone and pacing, but man, it's kind of just a fun ride that I just got to zone out for and watch Tom Hardy clearly have a fun time on set. So, like, I was enjoying myself. But general thoughts for you. I know you have a history with this movie.
Yeah.
What's going on with Venom round 2?
I can briefly discuss the history because I think I've discussed it on the podcast, but it's worth mentioning on the Venom podcast. This is a really weird story now that I think about it more. I was studying abroad in Dublin, came back from Oktoberfest, and I was like, you know what? I need to go just kind of relax. And so I went to see Venom. I actually got M&Ms to see Venom. Which I don't think they're like uncommon over there, but I like had to go out of my way to get them. So I got the M&Ms, got my popcorn, sat down in the movie theater. Previews are rolling. I'm like, all right, I heard some like earlier impressions. So I'm like, all right, I'm just buckling in. Before the movie begins, a light fixture falls like a row in front of me and almost murders this woman that's in front of me. And they like staff like quietly cleans it up and like gets it out of there. And I was like, okay, weird. And then I watched the movie and it was awful. And I was like, wow, that was the universe warning me to not watch this movie. So that was my history with this. I was hoping that there weren't any signs from the universe this go around when I rewatched it. Apple Plus, which I watched this on, like just stopped letting me watch this movie. It said that I was watching this on another device, which I was not. So I had to figure that out. Eventually, I could rewatch it. So I think that was another sign, unfortunately. But I still think this is a bad movie. But I do think there are redeeming qualities this go around. Now that I have like the hindsight, and now that I can pay attention to this a little bit more as a movie, I do think there are some really good moments in this. And my biggest critique of this is that it takes 50 minutes for Eddie to have the first conversation with Venom, and I think that is way too long. Like the movie stumbles to get to that point, but once it does, I really enjoy the back and forth between Eddie and Venom. It's just the parts before that take forever to get there, and I do not like anything that happens in that first half.
So I don't disagree with you. Like that's like when I said it feels like it's out of time or a time capsule. Like I think of like the original Iron Man. I think of Ang Lee's Hulk. I think of Batman Begins. And while some of those are really good movies, and I don't think Venom is on that level of quality, that like slow burn to get to the hero moment, or in this case, the anti-hero Venom conversation moment, like it feels like an out of time thing of like before the superhero movies in like the first half of the 2000s usually started pretty slow, and like it was a spectacle moment when the reveal happened. And even by the time of Iron Man 1, like the first like 40 minutes of that movie, yes, he's in like the big chunky suit, but we don't see that Mark III we were talking about earlier until like a good ways into that movie. And that was 2008. Right now, Shang-Chi, new origin story, dude's in a fight in the first like 15 minutes, and then we're off. So clearly the genre, even within the MCU, has evolved to a point where it's like, hey, we know like the right pace to go for introducing these concepts and what should make the hero feel iconic. And that's why with Venom, the pacing's so weird. I don't necessarily mind it, but it is like we've moved beyond this, That's the way I look at the first act, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like I feel like a lot happens in that time where it's like, man, I can't believe they like crammed this all in at this point. Like Eddie starts off with his girlfriend at the time, and they're like having a good time, and then he does what he does, and then they break up, and that's like within like the first like 15 minutes of the movie. I'm like, man, that moved really quick. And I still do not like Tom Hardy's performance in this. Like I cannot read him. I know Eddie Brock he's not supposed to be a good person. And he's not. I just can't read what he seems like. Very erratic. Like he acts like something is wrong all the time. Like I don't.
He's got an alien living in him.
No, it's before that. It's before he does that. That makes sense once he gets Venom. Like that being a part of his identity makes sense. There's literally voices in his head. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. He acts that way before that. And I'm like, did he know that he didn't have Venom in it at the time of this filming? Like, I know the scenes were filmed that's like not sequentially. So like, did he know that? Because he's just acting like that through the whole movie. And at the beginning, like in the first hour, it just doesn't make sense. And I couldn't get a good read of his character. I still don't like that.
Sure, yeah. I think it's tricky with any movie, I think, when you're introducing a villain as the lead. Because, like, going into this movie, I know in the comics, like, Venom has had runs as an anti-hero before this movie came out, but, like, it's kind of rough. And in terms of mainstream adaptations of Eddie Brock, the only one we have is Topher Grace. So I think they just did a poor job of introducing, how do we make this anti-hero typical villain introduced to the audience? How do we show that Eddie Brock isn't a good guy? And I think their choice of going on the narcissistic, self-absorbed reporter angle, I guess it would, like, for me, it wouldn't be that large of a leap to make him seem kind of like an erratic dude who doesn't really care about. He has no like self awareness, kind of. So I think that might just be a choice that was made in terms of trying to adapt this character to be a protagonist, and they didn't do well with it. And like you're saying, like most of the things I don't enjoy about the movie are in the first act. That's one of them, but it doesn't bother me as much, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you. That it is the first half of the movie that I'm like, man, I don't like this, and I genuinely think that is a bad. It makes the movie bad as a whole.
What's
like,
the runtime?
I think it's around. I think it's like 90. No. It's 112 minutes, I think.
Okay, so you take out one act. How long is that? About 90 minutes?
Sure.
We got some great news then, Jack.
I know. See, that's what has me excited about. Not excited, but like less pessimistic about the sequel, because we already have Venom and Eddie together from the get-go, and it's 90 minutes. That is a quick turnaround to get me the hell out of the theater, so that's good.
Yeah. In terms of when the movie turns around for you, is it when it gets all horror movie for a quick brief moment, or
Yes.
is it after that?
Okay. So it's the apartment scene where he first realizes that Venom's there, and he's like having a conversation, and all the way like through the chase scene, and then to the point in the famous San Francisco building where he like is fighting all the like the mask copy scene. Yeah. I thought that was actually really great, and that's something I'm glad you mentioned, the horror element. That's something I wish that this movie like really cemented itself as. Like, I wish this was just not like capital H horror movie, but more horror vibes. I think would have really sold this movie. And I think maybe they tried for that, but it just came off as like over serious at a lot of points, like especially with the villain and the way people overacted. I think that was kind of a detriment. But yeah, it really was for me the turning point for this movie, where I'm like, you know what, I actually enjoy parts of this, was once Venom finally took hold. Like, obviously that should be the good part, and it was.
Sure, yeah. And I'll say I can tolerate the first act, right? I think it's like, it's definitely a little, it's slow, but that infiltration scene, I think that's fun. When it does get all like the harsh red light and everything, like I'm into that. And just the process of like him joining with Venom leading to everything for the rest of the movie, I really like. I think they handle a lot of the sort of very light horror elements fine, like the transformation and just like the fear that Tom Hardy has when everything's going down for the first time. I really love a lot of that, because I think like Venom is and always has been kind of an edgelord character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm aware of this. I've been aware of it since I played the PS1 Neversoft game. Like, Venom's just kind of a freak. He's a little weird. So the fact that it has like this off-kilter darkness and like tries to be funny, but it's kind of lame at times, it just sort of works for me in a way that I kind of appreciate. But yeah, the self-serious angle definitely, I'm hoping, fades away with a different director at the helm, because ideally for me, like my perfect Venom movie, I don't think it's like far away from what this is, but tonally I feel like they should lean more on that like scream, campy slasher sort of horror with maybe a little more genuine horror, like sneak that in there somewhere. And I think that's a road we can go, keeping him being an anti-hero and stuff. And movie tries it here. Execution wise, they don't nail it, I think.
No, I don't think they do. Also, I feel like shock comedy would go a long way. Like,
yeah,
making fun of the ridiculous things that Venom just did would, like, I feel like that'd help keep that would help keep this movie light, and it's like very serious in a lot of points. And when they do introduce humor, it's like that feels out of place and like it should have been utilized in a different way. The one thing I think is funny, it's not because of the word choice, but like the editing from Venom telling Eddie to jump out the building to like him waiting for the elevator. I think that's good. That's good comedy right there. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that kind of editing always gets me. Like when they're using the actual cutting and stuff, I like that a lot.
Yeah, totally.
I do also enjoy the conversation that Eddie and Venom have by like the river when Venom is starting to turn around like towards the end of the movie, and they have that sort of agreement conversation. And maybe it's just because I like the fact that this conversation probably pissed off a lot of dorks, but like Venom talking about how Planet X, I don't think he says that, but like whatever planet he comes from in the comics, all the other symbiote on his planet, he's a loser and people hate him. Like, I know that's not cool, but I love it. It's just really stupid in a very fun, charming way. And it's like, yeah, if Venom out the gate isn't going to be a villain, if he's this idiot from his planet, comes to our planet like Superman, is suddenly a god here, maybe it makes sense if he's trying to be a hero that people like, you know? Like, I think that's a train of thought for this newer take on anti-hero Venom that I can get behind. I know people don't love it, but I do like it.
Yeah, I didn't hate that aspect. He's supposed to be like an outcast, so they're trying to pair him with Eddie. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But it's just like the line delivery of like when I on my planet I was a loser. It's like, okay, whatever.
I do prefer that than them trying to be like, I had a very hard life, you know, like or like I've lost my family and they you know, like anything, like the movie, like you're saying, is already a little too serious at times. If they made Venom try to be that hardcore edgelord punk dude on his alien planet, it would have just been like kind of mind numbing for me. So the fact that they're like, oh yeah, he's a bumbling idiot, but on Earth he's got potential, I like that a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Does Tom Hardy get better for you in the movie?
No, really not. I think the one scene I actually genuinely like in terms of the acting is him in the car with, I'm forgetting the character's name, his ex at the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I do not.
Is it Amy?
Amy sounds right.
Something like that. Either way, I do like that where like she's genuinely trying to understand what's happening with him, and he is like having voices in his head and is like not dealing with it well. So like I thought that was acted very well, but on the whole, no.
Sure. You're telling me you're not a fan of his performance when he goes into that restaurant and sits in the lobster tank?
No, it's as offensive as it was in 2018.
Man,
it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, see, there's instances like that in the movie where it's like, where is this coming from? Like, this is slapstick comedy.
He's got a parasite.
Yeah, in this, it's just like, it's so like capital S silly in this movie that is like for the most part is treating itself like very seriously. And it's like, what is this? It's very like huge juxtaposition of what they were trying to go for, and it's like bizarre. I think there's a lot of instances like that where it's just very distracting to what's happening. It's like, oh man, they're using comedy in like very strange ways in this.
Yeah, like it's definitely, it feels like it's two movies, but for the most part I enjoy both of those individual things, and I just think the way they weave it together, it's not great, but like I'm saying, I think given a different director or a different editor, like the sequel, we could have some magic in our hands, you know? Like, I think there's a chance. Because we'll probably talk more about this with the next one next week, but like, I felt this way back then. I still feel this way now. This movie, as it stands, if tomorrow they said this movie, Venom 2018, is MCU canon, not talking like weird multiverse stuff, like it is canon MCU, this happened, the snap happened in this universe, I'd buy it. I wouldn't really have that many qualms or questions about like, well, tonally or quality wise. Like quality wise, I do think it's just fun still, but in terms of what goes on in San Francisco, what else happens in San Francisco? Ant-Man, Shang-Chi years later. Like I think there's a world where they could convince me very easily from both a our viewer perspective in terms of enjoying or not liking the quality of a film and also in universe that this works in the MCU.
No, yeah, there's nothing in this that breaks the logic of the MCU. Like, you could fit this in, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Erratic journalist who got a alien and is now a superhero. That can fit next to Iron Man. I think so. Like, genuinely, I do. I think, yeah, the tone is kind of weird, but you know what else in the MCU has a weird tone? Thor 2.
Mm-hmm.
Age of Ultron's got some weird vibes, some like weirdly religious undertones, just feelings sometimes too. Like the MCU isn't spotless when it comes to that, so I feel like Venom can have its place, you know?
Think Venom's in the Thunderbolts?
Ooh, no.
No?
I don't think so. But how do you feel about Venom without Spider-Man in the movie? Because, like, we both grew up... I imagine we both grew up fond of this character from the animated series and the games. But Spider-Man has always been pretty essential to the Venom we know. Does Venom without a Spider-Man yet work for you?
Yeah, I think that character can stand alone, for sure. Like, I don't think this movie works very well, but I don't think that's because Spider-Man's not involved. Like, I think, like, a character study of Eddie Brock and then having Venom attached to him is really interesting on its own. Like, that, I don't think that needs to be attached to Spider-Man. But, I mean, if, and it seems like it will, he ends up meeting Spider-Man and, like, having conflict there. Obviously, that's going to be the main draw. But, no, I totally think you can have a Venom solo story. I don't think it's worked with this movie, but I'm hopeful for the sequel to maybe prove that.
Yeah, and I think this specific take on Venom makes sense in a lot of ways of how you can make that work even. Like, what we said, typically it starts the symbiote with Spider-Man, he leaves it, he finds Eddie, and then he tries to get back to Spider-Man. Skip a step, start with Venom and Eddie. Venom wants to be a hero. He sees Spider-Man being way more of a competent hero than Eddie could ever be. He goes to Spider-Man, he ditches it, he goes back to Eddie. Like, I think you could have an interesting arc across a few movies there if you work in a symbiote storyline.
Yeah, I think it's good to start here and then progress. I think I agree with you.
Speaking of, is it symbiote?
I remember I went to watch the first trailer for this movie and they said symbiote and then everyone was like, no. And they were like, oh yeah, sorry, and changed it. Like they don't say symbiote in this movie. They say symbiote because that's the reaction to this was so funny.
Yeah. What did you say your entire life? Because there's people out there that say symbiote for sure. I've heard that.
Wrong. And they're wrong.
I know they are. It's symbiote.
Yeah, it's symbiote.
How do you feel about the other symbiote in the movie? I'm forgetting its name.
Riot. Yeah, it's just another example of, like, okay, it's the villain that's similar to the hero, but bad, or more bad in this case.
It fit right in place with the MCU.
Yeah, exactly. Attached to a villain I already don't care about, who is like way too pretentious and full of himself and not a good villain at all. Like, just pure evil, right? Like, can't even sympathize with this guy. Just pure evil.
I'm rich. I'm bad.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. They checked all the boxes there. They got it. And like, because Venom shows up with Eddie so late in the movie, I feel like that part of the movie onward is just so crunched for time that we get Riot like out of the blue, and then a couple scenes later, he's fighting with Venom, right? So I don't care about the villain, whose name I'm forgetting. I don't care about Riot. So like that fight at the end is just like, okay, whatever. It's not even an interesting fight really, until the end where he like burns up. I thought that was cool, but
yeah, dude,
it just I don't care. Really don't care.
How many people were in your theater when you saw it?
A handful. I would say probably similar to how many were there for you.
Did your audience have a reaction to the oddly sexual kiss between Venom and Eddie and Amy, let's call her?
Nothing that I remember. Why? Did yours?
I don't know, but like my brain is telling me that some people are just like, huh? Like what? I remember laughing.
It was weird for sure.
Yeah.
Also, like
laughing there.
Like symbiotes have to attach to like perfect hosts. So I thought that was weird, like in terms of the context of that. Like shouldn't
that's gonna get retconned fast? I can tell you.
Oh yeah, and that's me just kind of like sinking into it. But they go into like a pretty big deal of like, hey, these symbiotes don't necessarily work with everyone. They have to be like, it was kind of random that Eddie fused with Venom as well as he did, and like Venom's just going to his girlfriend now. It's kind of weird. The whole situation was very strange.
Yeah. I saw, I think, some posters, like character posters for the new Venom movie. And his girlfriend is in the sequel, right? And the way it was like the background in the skyline, it was the actor. And then in the foreground, very, very small, in like a silhouette thing, there was like their character again in like an action pose or something. And for her poster, it looked like Lady Venom was on the poster, so I don't know if we're getting more, but maybe that was just a callback. That was certainly a cultural moment, I think, when we all saw the film for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, my personal reaction to that was very much like we were in the movie, so I was already like getting hit left and right with like what is going on, and that was just another one. It's like, great, cool, glad I saw that.
Stanley cameo, pretty great. Pretty good one.
But I guess this would be after he was talking about doing psychedelics in the 60s for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yes, it was. And this was this his second to last?
I was thinking that.
Captain Marvel was February or March, and then Endgame was the last one in April, May, whenever it came out.
Yeah. Did this come out before he died? Because he died that fall or winter.
I think so. Yeah, because I remember when. Yeah, it must have, because I think I came home from work that day and I watched Homecoming.
Yeah, same.
And that fall I saw Venom at home, so that was like probably Columbus Day weekend or something. So, right. Yeah, the movie for sure came out the fall he passed away. I think
it did. But yeah, that was a fine. I was surprised. I forgot about that. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and honestly, for like one of the last ones he did, I thought it had like a nice little end note to leave off on, kind of.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah. I think also as we go through our Spidey review, it'd be fun if we ranked the Stanley cameos for each one.
All right.
So for now, this is number 1.
That's number 1.
We will probably not have an updated ranking for next week because Venom 2 has been shot over the last year. So we will continue that with Spider-Man 1.
Is he? Oh, is he in Spider-Man 1?
As I said that, I was doubting it. I don't know if he is.
Because like that was back in the day where he would show up and like pull someone away from falling debris. I think that might be the Spider-Man.
That's the first one, yeah, I think.
All right. I'm struggling to remember the second.
The first one for sure, it's the parade.
Yeah, the third is him like actually talking to to Peter.
Yeah. I forget what the other one is, though.
Yeah, we'll see.
Is there anything about Venom that we have not brought up yet that you're down to talk about?
No. Like, overall, I didn't hate watching it this time. I appreciated it slightly more now that I could, like, I knew my opinions going into it, and I could, like, sit down and sort of appreciate it for what it was. I think the back half of this movie is, like, pretty decent. Like, I really enjoy the Eddie Venom back and forth. So I appreciate it on that aspect. There are some parts of this I actually kind of like a lot, and there are a lot of parts I really don't like, so it kind of drags down the overall product. I rated this as a 1.5 on Letterboxd. Very tempted to go to 2. I was very tempted to go to 2. I gave it a 1.5 in 2018, and I figured might as well just keep it consistent. Very tempted to give it the number 2, the 2 stars, which is also bad, but it's still a 1.5 for me. Not good.
See, I forgot to log it and rank it, but I would honestly, I think, give it 3.
Okay.
3 stars. And listen, I gave The Phantom Menace 3 stars recently.
Well, yeah, you're correct. That's a 3-star movie.
Okay. I'm glad we agree on that. But before I said 3 stars, I was dancing between 2.5 and 3. But I do think that a lot of what Tom Hardy does in just on screen, seeing him have fun with his character, the fact that Venom is leading a motion picture, presumably trilogy at this point, and is establishing himself to be like genuinely a solid anti-hero after all these years and years and years of just standard hero stories, I think is pretty neat, even though a lot of this doesn't work. I still have a very fun time watching this movie. But I'm aware that it's got problems. You know, it's not great. It's not capital G good. It's maybe not even lowercase g good, but it's all right. You know, it's a solid, fun flick.
It's certainly watchable.
Okay. Well, we both watched it, so
we sure did, and it's our number 1.
Oh yeah, feels good. Jack, I will tell you this right now. I haven't seen the Raimi trilogy or the Amazing Spider-Man movies in a long time. I am going to make it my mission to make sure that Venom is not last place.
Oh, it won't be. I would be surprised if it was.
Okay.
I would be surprised. Like, we're obviously talking about Spider-Man 3.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's easy last place. Like, I'd be surprised.
So, before we even get to the Raimi trilogy then, you're thinking you like this movie more than you like Spider-Man 3?
I think it's a better movie than Spider-Man 3. Okay. I'd rather watch Spider-Man 3.
Fair. That is a fair point.
Spider-Man 3 is a bad movie. Bad. Should be ashamed of itself. But I would rather watch that movie because it's ridiculous. Right? It has prequels vibes to it. Even though I think the prequels are probably better. But like, you know, like you understand that that's a bad movie, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're going through the Star Wars saga on Jedi Knights for the fall, right? And I watched, like I said, Phantom Menace last week. Phantom Menace, lowercase g good.
Oh, yeah.
It's good.
Sure.
It's got some good stuff in there. So, right now, having not seen Spider-Man 3 in at least a decade, insulted that it is in the same sentence as the Phantom Menace as of right now.
Yeah, no, Phantom Menace is certainly better than Spider-Man 3. No question about it.
Fantastic. Before we wrap up, Jack, that wonderful...
Oh, God.
Perfect time. Just, there's no sentence that makes more sense than the cut to credits for Venom, the film, is just orchestrated by a Marshall Mathers song. It's perfect.
I mean,
it's perfect.
Since this movie feels like it came out in 2002, you might as well get the hottest artist of 2002. Like, just makes sense. Just makes total sense. So I'm glad they did that.
That's why I lean to give it 3 stars, Jack, because I'm convinced they know what this film is.
That's an interesting take. I think that's a really interesting take.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, I genuinely, though, when I left the theaters, I was smiling. I probably said, I was like, that's a 7. And it was just because, like, this was right after Infinity War, after a decade of the MCU and modern superhero movies. It's not great, but it was fun and refreshing, the same way that, like, some of the X-Men movies, like, pre-2010, aren't great, but they're from a different time, and for the time, I think they're fun, and Venom was just kind of a reminder to that era for me.
Sure.
So I think they know. And the fact that they got a fucking Eminem song written for the film tells me they were in on it.
Sure. I think it's funny that a literal and figurative ocean separated our viewings and our opinions of this movie.
Yeah.
At the time.
That's very fun.
Also the end credit scene, garbage. Like, I think it's funny bad. Like, really funny bad.
Yeah, dude, his face.
Just
his little face he's doing.
The face, the wig, the way too on the nose. When I get out, there will be carnage. Like, oh, God.
I'm glad they ditched the wig.
Yep.
And I will say, I'm a fan of the casting.
Oh, yeah.
I like Woody Harrelson. I think he's going to be a great Carnage, personally. But yes, I agree. The wig is ridiculous. That's cheesy. That's the cheesiest thing in this movie is that face, that look, and that line.
I'm excited for the sequel for Woody Harrelson, because we'll have, hopefully, presumably, a better villain than we got this go around. And that's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and plus, I trust Andy Serkis. He hasn't given me a reason to doubt him. So
true.
That's the last point I'll make. We barely talked about it, but the Pioneer that is Andy Serkis will hopefully be able to make some of the CG a bit more cleaned up. Because I love how Venom looks in the movie.
Yeah.
Like the weird wetness, the sheen, all of his moves, his powers. I love how Venom looks. It's just, when he's fighting Riot at the end, it just gets a bit muddled, I think. And I'm kind of just like, yeah, there's some knives in there. There's some blades. So I hope it's a bit more clear with Venom 2. And the trailer so far with, Carnage, he seems very defined. Maybe the red and black will help that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I would imagine this movie has a bigger budget than the first, so that'll help too.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Record breaker, this movie, Jack.
Venom
1, yeah.
Yeah, I know it did really well. It's honest. It's surprising, for me at least. It's this movie nearly made $1 billion. It made $800-something million.
We can only go up.
I don't know about the next one.
Oh, well, yeah. I remembered we were in a pandemic after I said that.
I'm very interested to see how. Yeah, hopefully. I'm very interested to see how that box office does for Let There Be Carnage. Because then you can compare a direct sequel to a normal time release. That'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a good call. Well, like we said, by default, Venom, congratulations, you are currently number 1.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, it's going to last a little bit, Jack, because we got our normal Saturday episode next week will not be the Venom Let There Be Carnage review. It will be a standard episode of Excelsior, and the Venom review will upload separately to podcast feeds the week following release, once the box office numbers are out there, similar to what we did for Shang-Chi. I think we ended up doing that around Tuesday following the release weekend. So expect a similar timetable for Venom 2. That will be the ranking, spoiler review, whatever we want to talk about with Venom 2. And then we'll get back on track for the following Saturday to be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1. So, final thoughts, Jack? What do you want to leave off on? Where can people find you?
Sure. Venom is still bad, but there's some good stuff in that movie, and I appreciate it a little bit more this go around. But you can follow me on Twitter at FascinatedJack. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the sequel. Like, I'm not excited, but I'm interested, and hopefully, I'm sure it will be a better movie. So looking forward to that. What about you, Christian?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch at Chun2D2, youtube.com/joyclicks. You can find me there as well. We just did our Hall of Game ceremony 3, myself, Jack, Omar, and Mike Connors. We did our induction ceremony for the greatest games of all time. No Marvel game yet, but every time we do one, it's getting closer, you know.
That's a good point.
This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you choose to get your podcasts. You can listen to it directly through Anchor as well. That's where we host the podcast. But rating and reviewing, if you're new to listening to the show or if you're finding us for the first time for the Spider-Man review, welcome. New agents of Excelsior, glad to have you here. Subscribing, liking, rating the show helps a lot. Helps with discoverability, and we appreciate it. If you would like to support the shows, patreon.com/joyclicks at $1 and $5 tiers. $5 tier will give you producer credit on this show and every show we do, like Chris Sakas, Aaron Easton, and Charles Applin. So thank you all for listening. Venom, you're all right. Oh, and we got the new podcast art now. So Spider-Man season is here.
Nice. Yeah. Dude, I love Spider-Man season. I'm fucking all in.
Oh, yeah. Big time. I'm stoked. Can't wait. Well, until then, Excelsior / it's pizza time?
Ooh. Excelsior, it's pizza time.